Welcome to the Razor's Edge Beaming and Fleshing Machine instructional video. In this video you will see how the machine works, how to attach blades, brushes, and scraper, and how to keep it clean. Here the taxidermist is removing a blade assembly shield. This will allow him to access the blade and blade mount. To remove the blade, the taxidermist uses a Phillips screwdriver to loosen the screws. Removing the screws is not necessary because the back edge of the blades are slotted for easy removal. Besides, removing screws just increases the chances of losing one. The taxidermist is shown indicating the major and minor beveled edge of the blade. This is important when reattaching the blade, which will be demonstrated later in the video. The taxidermist is now removing the blade mount by loosening the 3 screws. Again, removal of the screws is not necessary because the back edge of the blade mount is also slotted. Also, these 3 screws are used to attach the brushes and a scraper. The taxidermist is pointing to the beveled edge of the blade mount. When reattaching the blade mount to the blade rod with the 3 screws, make sure the beveled edge is toward the guide, then simply retighten the screws. Again, the taxidermist indicates the major beveled edge of the straight edge blade. He reattaches the blade with the major bevel toward the guide. This is important for maximum blade performance. The taxidermist is now setting the guide relative to the blade edge. Once the guide is positioned where he wants it, he will finger tighten the Allen head nuts. Then he will follow up with the Allen wrench for final tightening. Guide settings are generally the personal choice of the taxidermist. To change the blades, simply loosen the 3 blade screws. Remove the blade and replace it with another blade. Notice the taxidermist is pointing to the major and minor beveled edge of the scalloped blade. Again, for maximum blade performance, the major beveled edge is positioned toward the guide. Using a piece of paper, the taxidermist demonstrates how you would pull a hide across the guide and into the blade. His wide grip would allow for long shaving pass across the hide. The taxidermist is now using a short grip, which would give the taxidermist more control, for example in the facial area of a white-tailed deer cape. This is another view of how a taxidermist would pull a hide across the guide for long shaving passes. Here the taxidermist is again showing adjusting the guide relative to the blade edge. Once he has the guide where he wants it, he finger tightens the Allen head nuts and then uses the Allen wrench for final tightening. With his pencil, the taxidermist will indicate the gap between the blade and guide, which will determine depth of cut. With the blade and the blade mounting plate removed, the taxidermist can now attach a brush using the same screws as for the blade mount. Again, with a piece of paper, the taxidermist shows how you might track a duck skin across the brush. The scraper is attached exactly the same way the brush was attached in the previous clip. The scraper can be used for both birds and fish. We believe this to be a personal choice of the taxidermist. Again, the same method for pulling a skin across the reciprocating action used for the brushes can be used for the scraper. Here the taxidermist is removing the blade shield and blade assembly for the purpose of cleaning the entire tube assembly. First, he removes the blade and blade mount. To clean the tube assembly, you simply remove the two hex bolts at the base. Then the blade assembly screws need to be screwed inward, so when you slide the blade tube up and off, the screw heads won't interfere with the tube. Now, slide the tube assembly up and off the blade rod. If this tube assembly actually needed cleaning, the taxidermist would use the bore brush as shown, along with some hot soapy water. This assembly can also be put in the dishwasher. Now you just slide the tube assembly back down over the blade rod and attach the two hex bolts at the base. Once the hex bolts are tightened, reattach the blade mount and blade, and the machine is ready to use. You are now looking at the standard attachments that come with the machine. 3 brushes, stiff, firm, and soft, along with 1 scraper, 2 straight edge blades, and 1 scalloped edge blade. We hope this helps anyone watching this video to better understand how easy it is to operate and maintain the Razor's Edge beaming and fleshing machine. Our goal was to provide the most versatile and precise and easy to use machine possible for preparing hides and skins of mammals, birds, and fish. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us anytime.